Good morning. Parliament is resumed. May I invite the elected member for Georgetown West to grace us with prayers.
Good morning. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of Parliament now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations for the glory of thy name, and for the safety, honor, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our sovereign, King Charles III, William, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the governor of our islands, the premier, the speaker of Parliament, the leader of the opposition, ministers of the cabinet, ex officio members, members of the Parliament, the Chief Justice, and members of the judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace now and always. Amen.
Please be seated. Honorable members, there seems to be some issue with the broadcast of these proceedings, so I'm simply going to pause for a minute to see if it can be resolved. All right, we're in business. Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of messages and announcements.
None.
Presentation of petitions.
None.
Presentation of papers and of reports. Report of the Standing Business Committee, second meeting of the 2024.
Madam Clerk, one moment. The Honourable Premier is not yet in chamber. I don't know whether she wishes to depute the deputy to lay the report. It's just a Standing Business Committee report. We'll just pause a moment.
Presentation of papers and of reports. Report of the Standing Business Committee, second meeting of the 2024-2025 session of the Cayman Islands Parliament. To be laid on the table by the Chair of the Standing Business Committee. the Honourable Premier, Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Education, District Administration and Lands, Financial Services and Commerce and Health.
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Apologies, I was in a large committee room with a member of staff. I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of this Honourable Parliament the report of the Standing Business Committee for the second meeting of the 24-25 session of the Cayman Islands Parliament.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak thereto?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Only to thank the members of the committee. It was probably one that made history this last time in trying to have a quorum and to have a composition that could reach consensus, but I'm glad that common sense was the order of the day, and we now have before us a completed, duly considered report and minutes that have been approved, which has been signed by all members except one. I'm not quite sure what happened there, Mr. Speaker, but in any event, it's a majority of the members that were present. And I wish to thank them more sincerely for carrying out the duties that they were duly elected to do in this honourable Parliament. May it please you, sir.
Madam Clerk.
Questions to Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet.
I have received no answers.
Statements by Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet.
None.
Personal explanations.
None.
Obituary and other ceremonial speeches.
None.
Raising of matters of privileges.
None.
Other business. Motions. Private Members' Motion number 9 of 2024-2025. Motion to launch a national awareness campaign. To be moved by the elected member for West Bay West and seconded by the elected member for Bodden Town West.
I recognize the Honourable Member for West Bay West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move Private Member's Motion number 9, standing in my name, which reads as follows. A motion to launch a national awareness campaign. Whereas the Cayman Islands Constitution Order 2009, as amended, the Cayman Constitution, affirms our commitment to being a God-fearing country based on traditional Christian values, tolerant of other religions and beliefs. And whereas the Cayman Constitution affirms our commitment to being a caring community based on mutual respect for all individuals and their basic human rights. And whereas the Cayman Constitution affirms our commitment to being a country committed to the democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. And whereas the Cayman Constitution affirms our commitment to a community that practices honest and open dialogue to ensure mutual understanding and social harmony. And whereas the Cayman Islands is home to a diverse population of more than 130 different nationalities, and whereas there is much concern amongst Caymanians with regard to the social harmony that has not kept pace with the rapid growth and development, be it therefore resolved that the government considers launching a national awareness campaign that highlights the diversity and strengths of the Cayman Islands with a view of building a more inclusive society. And be it further resolved that the government considers including district activities that encourage community participation, especially among seniors, as part of this national awareness campaign.
The motion has been duly moved. Is there a seconder? I recognize the Honourable Member for Bodden Town West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
The motion has been duly seconded. Does the Honourable Mover wish to speak thereto?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In moving this motion, the House would know that I am Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Culture. And they would know that my minister is a man deeply rooted and concerned with and about our culture. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present this motion in my name and wish to record my thanks to the member for Bordentown West for agreeing to second the motion. And of course, in seconding the motion, Mr. Speaker, he had much to do with its drafting. Truth be told, when I asked him to second the motion, I was fully prepared for him to say, "Mark, you are getting sentimental in your old age." And that would be the end of the issue. As you can see, the member said no such thing, hence why I'm able to be here before you today. Mr. Speaker, as a strong advocate of preserving our culture, I began nearly 41 years ago by moving motions in this honorable House. One of the main motions was in 1988 to commission and publish a full and proper documentation of the history of the Cayman Islands. And it's, Mr. Speaker, it was a bit of maneuvering because at that time, in 1988, is where we are at today, the last meeting of the House. And I had several motions that I had not completed, although I had completed 90 motions from 1984 to 88. But I think it bores repetition. It bears repetition, Mr. Speaker, to read what that motion was, because it had to encompass several things. And I thought I was going to get ruled out, but they didn't. And I remember the late Carl Winker said, "But you know, you have gotten better to be able to get all that in one motion on the last sitting, meeting that would have been." But that motion said, Mr. Speaker, whereas there is a need to further the social, historical, educational, and cultural awareness and advancement in the Cayman Islands, be it resolved that government, 1, agree that persons awarded the Queen's Badge and Certificate of Honor may properly indicate that honor in writing after their name. 2, commission and publish a full and proper documentation of the history of the Cayman Islands. 3, provide a more comprehensive syllabus on the history of the Cayman Islands in all schools. And 4, create a special scholarship to be known as the Cayman Scholarship, to be wholly funded by government, and for all distinguished recipients to be known as a Cayman Scholar. Well, I was lucky, Mr. Speaker. If you search the Hansard, and I should have produced a copy to you, Mr. Speaker, but I didn't think it would be anything contentious in what I'm saying. But I'll give the Sergeant at Arms so that he can get a copy for you, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, as I said, I thought I was going to run into a problem, although the Speaker allowed the President, it was, allowed the motion to go forward. And the very first thing that the government did, in the late Mr. Honorable Tom Jefferson at the time, moved and agreed right there and then that the part of the motion that said in regards to his work to allow people to indicate the badge and certificate of honor behind their name. Right away they agreed on that. Some of the other things Mr. Speaker, it took some time and didn't get done until 1992, when I entered and became the minister, when I entered, elected to the Executive Council and became the Minister of Culture. Some of them, we started all of it, in fact, but didn't get done, and some has since stopped, I would think. Haven't heard much about it. As I already alluded to, Mr. Speaker, this motion, some might think, is not a natural fit for McKeever Bush, as my critics inevitably blame me for giving Caymanian status to many people back in 2003, our quincentennial year, even though it was the fair, legal, and right thing to do, having had over 16,000 people here for years and up to 30-odd years, not knowing if they were staying or going. But onward, I march. My motion today calls upon the government to launch a national awareness campaign that highlights the rich diversity and undeniable strength of our islands, which is home to people from over 130 nationalities. Mr. Speaker, we may be small in size, but I consider we are mighty when you consider the diversity and talent within our islands. Our Caymanian workforce, from tourism to finance, because Caymanians and foreign nationals work together, strives because of these talents and skills brought by people from around the world, assisting the learning of Caymanians in that business. Some of our Caymanians, Mr. Speaker, who became great ambassadors and workers in those businesses, they made it what it is today and did not go to college, but learned on the advice of those on a work permit. I know that to be a fact because, Mr. Speaker, being 70 years old and coming from a time when we didn't have an opportunity to get even a high school education, and wanting to learn commerce, took a less paying job in the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, leaving tourism, where I was making sometimes $1,600 a month back in 1971, 72, to get what? $623 a month, $300 and something every 2 weeks, because I wanted to learn, not an opportunity to go to college there. And I had accountants from Canada who became lifelong friends. Thank God one of them, Mr. Peter Gowdy, was married to a Bahamian and understood that there were Caymanians who had the ambition, who had the drive. And he taught us, and he taught me, moved me around that bank to learn everything that I could learn. In comes Mr. Kurt Tibbetts, worked with us together, and he working in the fixed deposit side and helped taught me that aspect of it. I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, to show that diversity is our greatest asset. It is what makes us unique, what fuels our economy, and what enriches our daily lives. Yet, Mr. Speaker, while we, through Caymankind, celebrate this, recent events highlights that the feeling towards Caymanian is not always reciprocal. And that's where the rubber hits the road. That is what causing friction. Not all of them, not all of it. And that's what I aim and I believe we can overcome. And that if we want to be a first-class, world-class country, everybody has to work together and understand where we are at. And I'm going to say nothing different because an election is before us. That's not me. Because any paper that want to carry what I want to say can carry it. I have never been elected by the newspapers or social media or television or talk shows. I'm reminded, no. I know how to get along, when to say what I need to say, and haven't grown older. Thank God. I'm 70. My grandson said, Papa, you 70 now? Yeah. How? I said, well, think of it. If I didn't reach 70, where do you think I would be? And we know the frictions that we are facing. I recognize that we are living in an era when division and misunderstanding are global challenges. You look around the world. But I am keen to ensure, if this is my last time, I don't know. I've never said I won till I won. I am going to run. Although they're saying, oh, you're too old, you should retire. Some people then telling me, we'd rather see you with a walking stick than having some driving their Mercedes-Benz. We don't want them. That's what they tell me. So, I am keen to help ensure that the deep divisions that exist in other countries do not grow and fester in our islands because of misunderstanding, hard feelings, and the actions of some. In the workplace, we know what is happening. We do, Mr. Speaker, can, and we must find the balance, find the fit to balance these situations. I am not going to get up there because somebody cussed me out. No. If I'm in a bad mood, I may cuss them back and then ask God to forgive me. But I'm not going to do so much as that, because the truth is our own people get up there and say all manner of lies and evil against each other. And that is our big problem. Remember, again, I repeat what Gerard said. If a Caymanian can't run the show, can't be the captain, can't be the premier, they're going down in the engine room and wreck it so the boat can't go no way. Thank God that attitude does not prevail completely in this country, but some of it still exists. And so, things that are not good for us, I see it. And I ain't gonna allow it, on my part, to fester. We must therefore proactively try to build a society where every individual, regardless of background, feels seen, he feels valued, he feels included, and is heard. Most least of all, our Caymanian people. They tell you, this is my island. Yes, it is our island. We didn't build it alone, but we carry a good disposition to help others help us. And that's what I want people to realize that have not been born here. This initiative, I think, is innovative and cross-cutting, and is one that will encourage collaboration and social harmony, not only within the community at large, but also amongst various ministries, departments, and teams within our civil service. The people who work along with us to improve the lives of our people. I said, and I'll say it here, as I said, I know we are on the cusp of an election and how people can utilize things against you and twist it. But I said, do anyone believe, Mr. Speaker, that this Cayman Islands that we have, that is still prosperous, still loaded with opportunity, and that as legislators we have to find the balance to help our people. But do we believe that we could have gotten thus far with 10,000 people? I hear them talking about too many people. I hear them saying who we're developing for. I'm going to address that a little bit later on. But, Mr. Speaker, could we have created a budget of $1.2 billion? When I came here, it was a little bit thicker than this notepad. And look at where we are today. Caymanians and foreign nationals making it happen. We could not have done it with a cook room, a 3-burner oil stove, or a 2-burner oil stove, or a 1-burner oil stove, or a gasoline fridge, or oil fridge. We could not have done it. Why aren't we rejoicing in where we have come from? No, we are complaining that it's too much now. Thank God that that's a complaint. Victims of our own success. Took many people to do it. So I say we can proactively continue along a path that will help us build a unified community. Everybody? No. I'm not that fool to believe that, because there are prejudices all around. But I've always been, Mr. Speaker. Always been. Some maybe even a little bit more today. Because I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, back then it still exists. They didn't want to see some of us in this house. Oh, no. You think they wanted me here? You think they wanted the Premier here? Some of them didn't want you here neither, Mr. Speaker. You know that? You think they wanted Bush here? No. Not good enough. I know their feeling. But that should not stop us, and that is not the majority. And this initiative, as I said, is innovative and cross-cutting, and is one that will encourage collaboration and social harmony not only within the community at large, but also amongst various ministries within our civil service. This enhances, I think, our community's social fabric and strengthens our social development framework, which is particularly important to me as Parliamentary Secretary for this and other portfolios connected to social development. That's been, I think, one of my strongholds. In fact, one of my opponents said one time, Mr. Speaker, oh, we got to get rid of him. Put him back in the community, make him work. He's a good community worker. Don't elect him. What a surprise they got. I got elected again. So this campaign is therefore necessary if we are to foster unity in diversity. People don't get it wrong. I hear some of them saying, let's mash it up. If I can't have this, I can't have that, then nobody else can have it. I heard some of them saying, if I can pay for multimillionaires, and I think I will get that opportunity if they come West Bay, West, and I believe they go north too, then get licked. They don't get it? I have heard them say, if I can educate and pay for my children, then everybody else can do so. Oh, yeah? Those are the people that want to run this country. Those are the people that want it. Oh, I will. Not yet. Not yet. I'm not going down there yet. But as I said, if they come, they will beat a barrage that they never met before. You can believe that. So, Mr. Speaker, many people who made Cayman their home years ago came here to embrace our culture and values. And that the intermarriages now, while plenty might have worked against or working against what we believe to be the right thing, perhaps marriages that are not token marriages. But there are many that have families. I have a daughter-in-law who's Honduran, that have grandchildren. I have a grandson, the oldest one, whose mother is Filipino. I have nieces and nephews whose father are Jamaican, is Jamaican. The intermarriages, not all have work, but plenty. Thank God, is working. Thank God. So, when we look at who is embracing our culture, we recognize that some don't. So let me be clear on this. It cannot be said for some of the new Caymanians today. There is a minority of groups who believe their beliefs and values are superior to those of our people. I see Caymanians, as I said, speaking out as they feel crowded and left out. But that's not everybody. And so my message to that minority, and they're right about me, so, this can be a little bit tit for tat here. But that minority is free, can feel free to live as the goodwill of the Caymanian people may be becoming exhausted of them. And for the remainder, we value your shared contributions, whether that is in the church, whether that is working on our garbage trucks, whether that is being a farmer, whether that is in the financial industry, the legal fraternity, the financial services, and you have it. Tourism industry, yes. For those, we value their shared contributions and their commitments to building a strong Cayman. Not just about the environment, because a lot of them is there. They have their place. They can't tell me, though, I must save lime lizards and kill people. They can't tell me I must save iguanas and stop the people from East End and North Side from getting to work at a decent time and getting back home at a decent time. No, I don't share that kind of contribution or that kind of commitment. So we therefore need activities, Mr. Speaker, that highlight the shared contribution of all communities, reinforcing the idea that we are one Cayman and one love, borrowing the tagline from the member, my friend, colleague from Bordentown West. If they had any idea whether I'm going to support him, I'm supporting him. Whether Caymanian by birth, status, or choice, everyone who calls these islands home and is legal has a role to play in shaping our future. A national campaign can reinforce the idea that we all belong, we all contribute, and we all have a stake in Cayman's progress. This is especially important when we consider how many of our Caymanian children are the product of a multinational family, as I just pointed out, of my own. where one parent is Caymanian and the other parent is non-Caymanian. And again, I want to make it clear, to be clear, that I'm not referring to, that I say those sham marriages where Caymanians give away their birthright. I'm talking about marriages or relationships between two people who love each other and who are raising a family together the right way. Mr. Speaker, the future of this country is our children. And while I strongly believe that they must learn and appreciate their Caymanian heritage and culture, they should also never be afraid to celebrate the heritage and culture which comes from their non-Caymanian parents. Therefore, I believe that a national awareness campaign should go a long way to encourage unity in this country. And what I envision is that the national awareness campaign will include several things. Media initiatives showcasing diverse voices from different backgrounds, professions, and communities. We know, Mr. Speaker, that in speech, in Bordentown and East End, they have a unique dialect, different from other areas in Cayman. Also, as we listen, you would hear English accent different from Jamaican accent. So it would be good for younger people to understand that this difference in dialect is nothing to be ashamed of. But they're trying to kill it. And some look down on it, some own Caymanians. I don't look down on it. I value it because it's coming from a generation and a people that have come up here in the ranks. There are differences in how we cook our food. Like Wilkes. East End had a way of doing so different from what my mother did in West Bay. And even beef. Speaking of which, Mr. Speaker, I see where they say this is Cayman-style beef. Cayman-style beef? Was never pulled. Pieces, strips. That's not Cayman style, at least not what I grew up with, not what my mama cooked. So there are differences, but there's nothing to be ashamed of in what we did. So let's not try to change that. Let's not try to change it. So the use of media not only will publicize information, but also allows for intergenerational connections amongst all communities. A vast amount of information can be shared digitally via a dedicated website that is monitored and maintained. So there are many initiatives that, Mr. Speaker, have been started, and many continue to this day. Our people, though, have to be involved, need to get involved, including, I remember, the National Children's Choir that I initiated. It is important for people to know that these things work, that these things can happen. Look at the CNCF choir. I helped push Lorna Bush. She was to start that in Cultural Foundation. And it is one of the best things that you want to sit down and listen to. That is culture. And people need to know about these initiatives for them to be at the forefront of what all people are engaging in. Better promotion of these activities will also allow for feedback to be easily shared and obtained to determine whether the initiatives are working or are not working, and the reasons why. Then we can continuously improve the ways that people coming into the islands integrate. But we need to put in place, Mr. Speaker, staff at the community level to ensure that our programs are doing what we are spending money to do. Mr. Speaker, we hear the complaints of not preserving our culture, and I must strongly encourage our people to be more involved, more interested in events, cultural events. As I said, I started the National Children's Choir in some way between 1992 and 96, thereabouts. It's either dead or just nothing is happening much with it. But it should be a community program melded into a national program where hundreds of children could be a part of it. These are the kind of positive cultural programming that our communities should have. You can think of it, if we had 15 or 16 in the entire choir, we had plenty. What was their population? What it is now, 84,000, 85,000, maybe more. We should have 1,000 young people who claim they have nothing to do, could be a part. Voice is important. It's encouraging. It's good. It's clean. If they don't use some of the songs that I hear today, that is. Mr. Speaker, why? We need the programming done so where it reaches into the community, and we need to put the staff. It just can't work it by itself. Them old days when your mother and others and the rest of them would get out there in the church and be there all day helping and teaching, much of that spirit is gone. People are more busier. But government then, coupled with the assistance you can get out of the businesses and communities in the country, must put a program like this. Just can't accept, give me a story once a year, that can be it. That just don't cut it by itself while it's entertaining. Can't cut it. You have to be in the community and be involved and ensure that cultural things, Caymanian, is enhanced and taught. Put in place educational programs in schools and within the districts that teach cultural appreciation and the shared history of Cayman's people. Programs and initiatives should encourage participation of all the persons, seniors within the community, inviting them to share their personal stories, the history, and their traditions. And this using and still engaging. And some of it is done little by little bits here and there. This could be done in collaboration with entities like the Council for Older Persons who advocate for older persons. Ms. Seymour, former member of the House, who's very much involved with the Council for Older Persons, always talking about the things that we can do to involve our older people who have the background, who lived it. Why do these people believe that what we lived and appreciated, we can't continue? Oh, you're too old. Too old? I can dance better than some of them. Yes. I can dance better than some of them. I can sing better than some of them. Older people have a place. And I don't like to place myself too much in that bracket, but age is age. But experience, too, is experience. That's why one of my slogans for the campaign, Mr. Speaker, is going to be, this is no time for trainee government. Stay home. Go do something else. Yes. Come and work first. Show what you can do for the community. Don't sit back and believe that all you have to do is run around with social media. Good thing to have. Look at the work you can do today on the phone. You don't have to get to the office, or you get it done before you get to the office. So it's meaningful, it's good. But for people to believe that we should shake up our culture, you can't do nothing because you're too old, and we don't want this and we don't want that. I say, that's not a way to build a country. That's not a way to build a country. You know what Singapore do? In one area, Singapore pays a family to keep their parents, grandfather, grandmother, with them in the home so that they can teach the younger children Singaporean culture and Singaporean heritage. And they have that knowledge because they are that age. I'm not saying not a place for the younger people. Of course there is. We want that. We want them to learn. We want them to be involved. Certainly. Mr. Speaker, public events and celebrations that bring communities together to showcase traditions, music, and cuisine. And one such celebration that can be considered, Mr. Speaker, is the matter that the Honorable Premier in her 2025 Heroes Day address referred to, where she referred to the possibility of designating a day to be Caymanian Day. Additionally, that initiative can be bolstered through partnership with entities that have existing public awareness campaigns and activities, for example, being incorporated into the Department of Children and Family Services, established Child's Month and Older Persons Month activities. They have done that. Mr. Speaker, industry, partnerships to highlight how diversity strengthens our tourism, financial, and public service sectors. This could include the Department of Children and Family Services, who have experience working in our communities. But I say that the ministries, and we do have good staff in the ministries, and I know we have it in the Heritage Ministry and the ministry that I work with, culture and border control, etc. Staff who work and are concerned, but they can't do it all. They can't do it all. That's why we need a strong cadre of workers, cultural workers, or whatever you want to call them, in the community. There they will know the families. There they will know the places. You got some people here, I never seen more names in my life that has no meaning to Cayman. I done well in West Bay in changing names, etc. Oh yes, I named it after sea captains and other outstanding people and outstanding names we had before where I lived. Now, where I live, Mr. Speaker, used to be, that was, when I grew up, it was called Boltons. Boltins. And when the good people came and they built up the place and made good homes, they called it Town Hall Crescent. But I didn't object to it as such like that, but I always knew it was Boltons. And when I had the chance, bam, I changed it back to Boltons. Boltons was from what I understood, English Colonel Boltons, that's what I was told by the old people. Back in the 17th century now, made that place. And from Watercourse Road, a little bit below that where my family, the Albert Ebanks, were, Watercourse Road, up to the Town Hall Road, all the way to Hell Road, cross Inferno and the cliffs there. All of that was one as I understand it, big farm, plantation. But you know what they were doing, Mr. Speaker? Growing hemp and shipping it to Haiti. That's what he was doing. I don't believe any such thing today down around me around there. But that's what it was. Yes. Someone just said to me, what is hemp? Ganja! That's what it was. Back then, a huge industry of that huge acreage. The bigger part of my constituency now is that area. So we want people in the community that understands people, that they can go and look for auntie, and in West Bay, we call her Kanate. Now, I always wonder what I meant. Someone asked me that a couple of days ago. What did con mean? I figured it was just a part of the speech twisted. Kanate. But uncle this and uncle that. And everybody was a cousin. Well, nearly so in West Bay too. Nearly so. Cousins. And Mr. Speaker, this cannot just be done by people in the ministry. They work hard. They had the knowledge. Some of them went to university, got good training, and when you talk to them, you know you're talking to a sensible person. What I'm talking about is hands-on down in the communities. We need to put the money there. We are giving out money here, there, and everywhere, and helping this one and helping the next one, which we ought to do as government. But we need to put staff in place. I cannot say that too much, in the community, so they know what to do. They know what an area was called, and they can teach that and pass that on. That's what I want to see. Mr. Speaker, before I finish up on this aspect, take Cayman Turtle Farm. Cayman Turtle Farm came, Mr. Speaker, because of the industry it was. That industry built many of the homes, some of which are still standing throughout Cayman, plenty in West Bay. And of course, we could ship some of it off for canning products to the Florida Keys. That Adams being one of the main ones, if not the only one, I'm not sure. But that ship, which was my wife's grandfather's, the late Captain Ali O.E. Banks, my wife's grandfather and my grandmother's first cousin. Him and his brothers, one being my great-great-grandfather, Captain Robert Albert E. Banks, Albert. And my father himself and uncles were navigators, sea captains, and good ones. And so that's how, and before them, of course, there were others, and there are many others, but I talk about who I know. There are many others. Captain Joe, Captain Osbert. So many in West Bay. And I speak about West Bay because I know it best. Turtle Farm became when there became a push through the British at us. And we stopped because of their efforts to put out turtle meat. Stop it. But they couldn't stop it, but they could stop the products which we were exporting. Cayman Turtle Farm still maintain a presence, hiring and feeding our communities. Today, we have a problem with the meat. You see it a little bit whitish in some of it, youngish. And as far as I'm concerned, need to look at how we operate on that now. Only sell to our local restaurants. The Super C, the Luigi, and other restaurant pansies, Liberties. I'm talking about pit restaurants in West Bay, but of course you got, what do you call it? The one in Breakers. I'm talking about, you got many others. Like South Coast, yes. They have good food. I think we need to look at it, talk to the minister. Not the hotels. You don't need to sell to the hotel. You don't need to put up £100 to the hotels, and then, Mr. Speaker, you can't get on to cook. Sell to the local restaurants, then the tourists will go to them. But if you sell to the hotels, it means less and less and less for locals. And into that, I'm hearing a kickback on. They can go to the local restaurants. The minister, talk to him about the turtle farm. And you all know the survival is important to Cayman as far as I'm concerned, entire Cayman, not just the people that work there, which not all West Bayers work there. But the minister will expand turtle farm to how more turtle, however he's going to do that. He will expound on, I think, on the platform and not here. And he'll probably do so here as well, knowing him. So, Mr. Speaker, these are the things that we have to preserve. Some people say, why do you have to preserve turtle meat? Why can't? No. It is part of our culture. It is part of our culture. You can't say no. It is. We must do all we can to preserve that entity. You take, Mr. Speaker, and talking about events. The event that we've created after Heroes Day in the evening, hundreds of people enjoying Cayman food, enjoying Caymanian artifacts, enjoying each other's company. Sometimes you don't see each other unless you went to a funeral, and you might see some. Enjoying music, not all Caymanian music, but I did sat there this last one and listened to a lot of good old time Caymanian music, Caymanian songs done by our local bands. So, the overall purpose of the National Awareness Campaign is to bring about unity. Unity through education, media, community events, and industry. Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Islands are a global model of peaceful coexistence, economic success, and cultural integration. But we must actively nurture this reality. They can cuss me if they want, and I know you're going to hear a barrage about Mickey Bush again. My day coming to fire back some things too, though, it's coming. By launching a national awareness campaign, Mr. Speaker, we affirm that diversity is not just our present. It is our future. Let us therefore take this step forward together in unity and strength. And I know members have been listening intently, and I hope that all members will rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Does any other member wish to speak?
Yes, sir.
The honourable member from West Bay North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I stand early and quick. I'm not going to wait around to hear all the other stuff. The member from West Bay West said something, brushed over it. Everyone, and very few, can say they have come to this island and they have not been, we have not respected their ways. In fact, it is known, Mr. Speaker, that Caymanians don't like confrontation, or at least most of us. But it has not been reciprocated, especially in the last 25 years. Mr. Speaker, I remember speaking here before, and some of you all said to me, be careful. You don't want to create a us and them. It's been them and us a long time, Mr. Speaker, but we've had our head buried in the sand, and people don't want to admit it. People don't want to address it. Mr. Speaker, early in my stage, in my time as the minister, myself and one of the best civil servants I've ever worked with, a lady by the name of Miss Tanisha Barnes, went to Jamaica and met with Bob Segrange and her staff that deals with heritage and culture and so forth. And we're trying to find out what can we do to start to make our next generation have something to hold on to and be proud of. We got out of the meeting and we're walking back and she said, you know our emancipation was different from everybody else. I said, that's it. And Mr. Speaker, we came back and we started. And then, bam, we found out that you had Fonso and Marizita already working on some of that to deal with Long Celia and to deal with Emancipation Day. And it hurts me, though, to say that the leader of the Cayman National Party, I'm not going to cut around things like him, you know, because from the time I've been here, I've been straight. I had to call him because he was upset and blamed it on the Minister for Tourism. And the Minister of Tourism told me, and I picked up the phone and called the man. So this is not a hearsay. This is mouth to mouth. And some explanation was given that, oh, UCCI and the financial industry in Cayman is not getting its proper respect. That has nothing to do with Emancipation Day. And I've understood now. I have not heard this from his mouth. But I know he didn't like it. But I did not hear this from his mouth, that he intends to stop it. But yet, I had Caymanian teachers, I had Caymanian scholars, everybody contacted me and said, we know this was your baby. Congratulations. That was one of the ways with this motion that the member from West Bay West has brought here. But our country has to change its mentality, Mr. Speaker. A perfect example. We find a map, a legal map, a real map that shows Grand Cayman, Cuba, and Jamaica in 1500. But we still making people tell us that Christopher Columbus or Christopher Columbus found us in 1503. That's what we believe in 1503 because who told us? Right there is our problem. I've sat for years and heard people talk about the member from Bordentown West and his Jamaican accent, which I hear a proper speaking accent, not really a Jamaican accent. But, Mr. Speaker, I can name one person in the glass house, and I can name one person under one of my ministries that they were, I believe they may have been born here, but their father and their mother had been here for a long time, and they're talking, good morning, Bernie. But no one says that they're not Caymanian, and they're saying they're Caymanian. But they're going to give the little man with pigmentation skin that went to the wrong school that he is not a Caymanian. That's the problem, is the mentality we have. That's why things like this he's talking is necessary. Mr. Speaker, just 3 or 4 weeks ago, people seen one little piece in the newspaper, and I know. I didn't want to call it newspaper. That piece of thing up there that you told them that they were, that you wouldn't, I was proud, and I told you I was proud of you. When you called them, they said that they were, a thing called the compass something. Because don't put no word Kimano onto that, because they're so anti-Kimanian, it's not a shame. I forget the word you used to describe them, you know. I was disappointed when we went back and gave them business, but that is life. Mr. Speaker, I had Ronald Forbes, our Olympic hurdler, and one of the most die-hard Kimanians you'll ever find. Real, true, blue Kimanian. And a good man. There's a young man going after his records, and he and I are sitting there, and he's saying, come on, young man, you can do it. How many people you know want their record to be broken? That's Ronald Forbes. Then I had Jordan Crooks. Gave me time out of his schedule. And I had Hakeem Bush. 3 successful young men. And I invited 8 young Kimanians. Some were indigenous. Some were new. Some were black. Some were white. What, Mr. Bush, what this motion is talking about? Mr. Speaker, when you and I were in high school, Paul Magnus, Helen Pooley, Belinda Ball, Todd Reed, all these people, white, brown, they weren't from here, but we were together, and we got to know each other, and we respected each other's ways, and we adopted each other's ways. True or false, Mr. Speaker? Very much so. I brought those young people together, and I said to them, because there's a young man in there. I did not get permission, so I'm not going to call his name. He's from swimming, but he won the deep water swim for us. And there was a young lady, when she won or got second or third the year before in the deep water swim, Coach Jackie said to her, I never knew you Irish could swim. And she said, my mom and dad may be Irish, not me. I'm a Kimanian. This is a little 14, 15, 16-year-old girl. And when Connor, the young man I'm talking about, you see, people don't understand. Carifta swimming and Carifta track and field don't, very seldom they take place together in the same country. And if it takes place in the same country, swimming and track and field is separate. Track and field is predominantly black. Swimming, predominantly white, but not anymore. There's a whole lot of brown skin and dark skin in there now. And Mr. Speaker, I have said it here on this floor before. I used to despise the rugby club. I used to despise swimming. And I had all the facts on swimming. I still got a file. I still got a file on the dirt that went on there before, of holding Kimanians on the outside, that even some of our children couldn't get to swim. I set them up and caught them when I was acting director of sports. But now, they are what this country needs, especially those 2 programs. Go to rugby. Look at who you see up there. It's poor Kimanians, indigenous Kimanians, black Kimanians, white Kimanians, new Kimanians, or whichever phrase you want to pick. And the latest thing that I'm hearing that it really don't sound good, the mixed breed. Sports. Sports. And I will forever be grateful to this government that I started with for helping me get that pool. It should have been here 20 years ago. Government after government kept kicking it down the road. And when Mike Lockwood Jr. was stepping out as president, and I was stepping in as minister, he said, if you do nothing else for me, get us that pool. And I went and I sat and I looked at the program. I sat and I looked at the times, did my work, and I could see what was coming. And I sold it to this government, and they backed me. When they brought it here, I didn't hear one thing on the next side, the Florida. So nobody going to be able to take credit for this. This was all of us. It's one of the greatest things this country has done. And 6, 7 years down the road, we're going to see the benefits. We're going to see it big time. because they have their stuff together. It's like the taekwondo. You know what they did? They brought in 2 grandmasters and had them going to all the primary schools. Started, Mr. Speaker, the programs in the primary schools. From the primary schools, they now picked a team. That's what you call building from the bottom come up. And now they're rated. So much so that the AAU is now looking at Cayman. That's how you do programs the proper way. Oh, how I wish I could have got some help. Instead of getting fight from people who know nothing about sports. I could have done so much more. But getting back, now here we are, Mr. Speaker, trying to build and bring people together. When I had those young people meet down there, and I want to thank Treats. They gave us their thing when they closed, and the food and everything for them young people to get together to talk with Ronald, Hakeem, and Jordan. And why I picked those people, I never picked Hakeem because he was my son. I picked him because, like what Ronald told him, he was the captain for the cricket national team, the junior national team. He was the vice captain for the national football team on the 19s. So they didn't know that my son also was a good sportsman. But he's also a greater pilot. When they found out that he was flying the 380, they were shocked, and all of a sudden you could see, well, Jordan is there, Ronald is there. And when I told them that Ronald, this country don't know, the cruise line is building an island, has taken over one island, and is building something in the Bahamas. Does this country know who's the project manager? Ronald Forbes, a man who tried to get back to work in the sports department here and wasn't good enough. But yet, he's managing for Royal Caribbean or whatever the cruise line is, an island. Mr. Speaker, I think I'm one of the most misunderstood people in this country, but I live with it. Because I don't play the games, because I don't kiss around nobody. And I say a lot of things that everybody else thinks. But such is life. I can hold my head high. Mr. Speaker, when we came back, and to think, let me get back, and to think that the leader of the Cayman National Party wants to stop emancipation there. That's what I'm hearing, he said. But I know he didn't like it because he and I had a conversation. And he told, Mr. Rankin from East End told him the same thing. So all I know is this. Those are the type of things that we have to do, that we can start to make our people proud. Jamaica has their reggae music. They got their athletes. We got the athletes too, but we've never put the right things in place, and we as a government has allowed certain associations, even when they are found guilty of their members molesting children. Some of the members still remain on their associations, and the government does nothing about it. You can't do certain things because you can't interfere, but you don't have to give them your facilities. You don't have to give them the money until they get rid of those people who hid the fact of what was going on. And they're still there now. But unless you get backative. And boy, you had certain people. They would run to Mr. Kurt Tibbetts and they would run to him, playing all through Jacobo's side. Like what they call riding a fence. But I guess those tights and Vaseline, you don't get chafed. Mr. Speaker, when Tanisha Barnes and myself came back, and the premier backed us to the hilt, the former premier, and give him credit, and the cabinet secretary, Philip Rose, we all worked together to get this thing, and the more, Samuel Rose, the cabinet secretary, I appreciate your help there, Mr. Speaker. And when we found out that what was going, we started to put things together. And I got things on my phone from school principals, from Caymanian school teachers, from young people in college were sending messages saying, yes, you know why? Because we could brag. It's not got nothing to do with nothing except the fact that all the rest of the Caribbean had to wait 4 years to be free. The woman who adopted me and raised me and who I love, and she died in my hands. You used to tell me Cayman never had no slaves. because that's what's passed down to her. We had slaves here, and we were the first island to be free. As small as that may be to some, it's a big thing to others who like to hold on, have something to hold on to in history. Ask the member from Georgetown, the former national team opening bowler, Mr. White. Ask him how it feels good when he can brag, say, when his grandparents had something to do with the West Indies team. That's a good feeling to be able to brag that, to say that. Now Caymanians can brag, say, we were the first island to be free. And our slaves might have a different mentality. Now I hear there is talk that they don't want to recognize Long Celia. I wonder why. I guess why. I guess the wrong, Mr. Speaker, I guess is when you have, once again, people don't like these type of things, but when you have the wrong complexion, it's not good. Anyhow, no, I never heard that from them, so I will not say that because I don't know for myself. But we have to change our mentality in this country, Mr. Speaker. And when I sat those young people down, bet you the compass never talk about that part. All they talk about, oh, this. Look, I told those 8 young people that they are responsible for helping the beginning of bringing this country back together as one. The new Caymanians and the indigenous Caymanians. Young Caymanians and old Caymanians. That's what the main thing in the building was. Yes, it was also pre-college, college, and post-college. But the main thing, get to know each other, and when they get together on trips, make sure you all mix. Mr. Speaker, caucus was presented a program called Catch the Culture. When it was presented, it was a pilot program run by Ms. Shekinah Bush. The Coast Guard posted it on their website before it had gotten to caucus because they loved it so much. The schools loved it. When it came to caucus, everybody loved it, Mr. Speaker. And I remember when she went through the program, went through the prices and what it would cost, everybody said yes. And I remember the premier said, but where is your price in this? And Ms. Shekinah Bush said, I wasn't thinking about making money necessarily off of this, just enough to cover those children that they'll know all about fishing. They know about tying knots. They know about this. They'll know about catch the culture. And it's her NPO, but she's trying to, right at the moment, finishing her next master's and before she kick it off. But all that will come in time. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from West Bay West. No matter how much we were, I know how much I've been across the floor on that side and this side. There's one thing the hand judge will always show. Whenever something that has come before this, I don't care who bring it. As long as the right thing, I'm going to support it. This is needed. I remember, Mr. Speaker, the member from West Bay, from North Side, standing up in that corner, the former Ezra Miller, and saying that what he's hearing on the street, that some people are not happy and there might be bloodshed. And the compass and everybody took this man apart. I'm glad he spoke first, you know, that day, you know why? I'd heard the same thing and I had intended to say the same thing. But in my usual way, if somebody else says it, I don't repeat it. I don't have to, all I have to say, I agree. Because I see people here say the same thing exactly, just so they can hear their own voice. I know one of them, Mr. Speaker. And when Mr. Roy Murray, who was an understudy to Dr. Philip Pedley, or Dr. Roy Murray, and them came in here and helped us with the emancipation stuff, and he found so much other stuff that we can show our young people that we can be proud of. When we opened the museum down, what used to be the Car Museum, it's one of the best places in this island to take our school children, and I will always thank them, once again, the member from Bordentown West, who found me the money and went with me to help beat Mr. Uglan the price down. And the young man, the Uglan's son, worked with us and he says, yes, he dropped the price drastically to help this country, that we can have something that our people can go down and see how proud it is. So when Mr. Bush is bringing this motion or this bill, whatever you want to call it, we need this. But we need to live it. We have to get our people living it, Mr. Speaker. And I do pray and hope that when this comes, that it will not be put on the back burners. Like since I've left the ministry, the national youth policy, the national sports policy, nothing has been done in ages about it. I hope when this comes, because this is a very serious thing, and we need to catch it because we cannot afford a division amongst our young people. We need them uniting and coming together since we can't seem to do it. And look at me and the member from Georgetown. Look how good we made up and we are now. We're even going to have dinner together. Mr. Speaker, if we can do it, anybody can do it. But please, members of this House, this is something that is serious, and this is something that has to be looked at, but we all in this country have to live it, regardless if you like this or not. I remember Anthony Eden, Winston Connolly, Arden McLean, Ezra Miller, and myself in 2013 voting against the TILEPs. And some of the people who was called us as people who was in this TILEPs, who were people seeing all this division in this country. And I see that without any reservation because I still got the list. Some things I keep because I like to say I was right. So, Mr. Speaker, with that, I will say to the other members of this club, please, please, take this bill or this motion very serious. We need it. We cannot afford our country going forward to be divided anymore, and especially for our young people coming through. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the honourable member from Bordentown West.
Thank you.
Honourable member from Bordentown West, if you would just resume your seat for a moment, please. Honourable member for West Bay West, I would invite you, sir, to lead the happy birthday chorus for the member for Bordentown West. I've only just learned of it. I should have announced it earlier. But
Well, what about my birthday? His too.
you were at home, unfortunately.
That's where I was.
But I know that I can rely on your voice. I don't know
yes.
about the rest in here. Some of them are suspect.
So you're breaking the rule and asking us to do that song, right? That's good. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, you know this is the season to throw licks on people, man. You can't put me in a good mood like this, man. No, you changed my overall demeanor and everything now. You know?
That's why he did it.
Okay, that's a good one. Thank you all, colleagues. I greatly appreciate the gesture. You know, I guess this be my birthday and all. It's normally a time I use to reflect and, most importantly, give God thanks for allowing me to see another year. I know at times, Mr. Speaker, I don't live the life that my mother would like me to live, but I can tell anybody without a shadow of a doubt that there's a God, there's an awesome God that we serve, and more importantly, He loves the Cayman Islands and He loves the people of the Cayman Islands. And the one advice I would always give young people or anyone, Mr. Speaker, comes from Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and those things shall be added unto you. And I would say that to all members to do the same thing, even though I may not lead like the best example, but I try my best at all times, to do that. One of the things I always do, Mr. Speaker, is that there are 3 poems that are near and dear to me. One is Invictus. One is Our Deepest Fear by Mariana Williamson. And the third one is actually Desiderata. And this morning, during my devotion, there was a song that deals with Desiderata, and it was just been playing in my mind even while I was getting dressed. And I want to share that poem with members today. And the poem goes, go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even the dull and the ignorant, they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble, is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affair, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially, do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive Him to be. And whatever your labors and aspiration, in the noise and confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. The poem I've came across from a very early age, and it's actually a poem that was introduced to me actually by my late father, so I guess that's why it has always been one of those that was, I guess, near and dear to me. Earlier, Mr. Speaker, the member for West Bay West, in his contribution, referred to my usual use of the term one love. And for those of you who are fortunate or unfortunate, depends on how you look at it, to get the many messages that I do send out, I always end it with one love, one came on. And the one love actually is more, I guess, respect for Bob Marley, who shared my birthday. But the real emphasis on that message, Mr. Speaker, is on the love part. And the reason why I emphasize the love is that for those of us inside this house who do study political science, and you listen to the teachings of people like Machiavelli, they would tell you that people are driven by two basic emotions, love and fear. And they would tell you that you appeal to people's fear because people decide who they love, people don't decide who they fear. And it is always best to appeal to the emotion that people have no control over. And that is one of the reasons why the message of fear or negative campaigning has always worked. On top of that, Mr. Speaker, when you consider that we are born with 6 basic emotions, 4.5 of those 6 are actually negative. There's fear, there's anger, there's sadness, there's disgust. Then there's surprise that can be either good or bad. And then there is happiness or joy. So as human beings, we are designed to actually process negative information or negative realities much more easier when 4.5 of your basic emotions are negative, except for happiness. And the one thing that can override those 4.5 negative emotions is love. You know, this morning, Mr. Speaker, as we were going through the morning prayer that was being done by a member from Georgetown West, as much as we come here every morning and we say that prayer every morning, this morning, there's one part of it that really stood out, that caught my attention. And it says, where we says, you know, forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And I know, Mr. Speaker, that many of us in this house, every one of us, all take the personal attacks that comes with being a member of the political fraternity. And as Obama said, you know, in politics, you expect to get roughed up. And we signed up for this, so it is no surprise for us. But as I said yesterday, it is many times the people closest to us that suffer the most who did not sign up for it. But they have to go through the motions. And we have to be the ones sitting there with them, just telling them, listen, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. It's part and parcel of politics. It comes with the territory. As Churchill said, if you have enemies, good. It means you're doing something. So if you don't have any of those, then something is bad. Mr. Speaker, when the member for West Bay West asked me to second this motion and we're having a discussion, you know, it was about the same time the riff-raff conversation and everything else was going on. And I said to him, I said, you know, Mac, you're really getting sentimentally getting soft in your old age, man. You know, this kind of motion here to speak about these things. And, you know, I said to him, no problem. We had a good, decent conversation on it. And I said exactly where his heart was. The thing about it is, Mr. Speaker, I really do sometimes feel it for the member for West Bay West. You know, when you've been in this business this long, I mean, I've been here 7.5 years, and it is at times a very dark business. And for a person to have been in it that long and cannot be that cynical and that negative, because we have to find an extra gear to be positive. We have to find an extra gear to just forgive, move on, forget, and just, you know, chalk it up to something else. You know, and in preparing for the motion, we're talking about, you know, highlighting our diversity. I couldn't help but go back to the census that we did back in 2021, Mr. Speaker. And this is still a good book, and I would tell people, please use it. It's a very good exercise. Census is important. And if you want to go back to the biblical days, remember when Joseph and Mary was traveling back to their home, it was because of a census. So that's to show you how far back censuses have been going on, even in the Bible. But the one thing I wanted to say, Mr. Speaker, is that one thing that came out of the census is that it revealed that we had a population of 71,432 persons, of which 327 were institutionalized. So the non-institutional population was 71,105. And they also, of the surveys that was done, there was actually 68,811 respondents, which was roughly a 97% feedback. And Mr. Speaker, when you look at the census itself, and it speaks about religion, of the 68,811 people who responded to the survey, 36,808 were Caymanians. And amongst our Caymanian population of 36,808, 920 identified as Anglican, 113 as Methodist, 106 as Hindu, 48 as Muslim, 47 Judaism, Rastafarian was 122, non-denominational was 3,080, none was 5,693, others was 1,204, Baptist was 3,370, Church of God was 8,458, Jehovah's Witness was 355, Pentecostal was 2,079, Presbyterian was 3,304, Roman Catholic was 3,060, Seventh-day Adventist was 3,541, Wesleyan was 904, and surprisingly, 406 people wasn't even sure, what they were. But barring the Hindu population, Mr. Speaker, which was 106, and I think in Hindu they may have multi-gods, every other religion recognizes the one God. And it says something about us, and thus, when we talk about he had founded it upon the seas, we can understand where the Cayman Islands is coming from. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted to highlight, despite all of us, or the majority of us, recognizing the one God, there's still a diversity in terms of the kinds of denomination. And Mr. Speaker, when you go and you look on page 126 of the census, and you speak about the Caymanian population, it speaks about the country of birth. Of the 36,808, 22,786 were actually born in the Cayman Islands, which is roughly 62%. And it means that 38% of the Caymanian population was not born in the Cayman Islands. And the countries highlighted as country of birth, as per the 2021 census, was the Cayman Islands, 22,786 in terms of birth, followed by Jamaica, 5,296, United States of America, 1,908, United Kingdom, 1,168, Honduras, 1,539, Canada, 768, Nicaragua, 258, Barbados, 100, Cuba, 682, Trinidad and Tobago, 206, Guyana, 128, Costa Rica, 66, Ireland, 98, Colombia, 188, Philippines, 247, India, 114, Australia, 56, South Africa, 73, and 1,035 others. And I think that speaks about the 130 different nationalities that are actually Caymanians to some extent. But Mr. Speaker, when you do look at it, 38% of the Caymanians, as per the 2021 census, were not born in this country. And again, it speaks of the diversity of our population. When you look at that by district, Mr. Speaker, for the District of Georgetown, of the 33,898 persons, 14,344 were Caymanians, of which 8,077 were born in the Cayman Islands, and that 8,077 represent 56% of the population. It means of the Caymanian population in Georgetown, 44% were not born in the Cayman Islands, as per the census. Moving to the District of West Bay, Mr. Speaker, there were 8,430 Caymanians in the District of West Bay, per the census. 5,462, or 65%, were born in the Cayman Islands. It means that the remaining 2,968, or 35%, were not born in the Cayman Islands, but are still now Caymanian. Moving to my home district of Bordentown, Mr. Speaker, 10,311 persons were Caymanian, 6,467 were born in the Cayman Islands, and contrary to popular belief, I was one of those 6,467 too. Yeah, me. But it also means that 3,844, or 37% of the people of Caymanians in Bordentown, were not born in the Cayman Islands. You look in the District of Northside, Mr. Speaker, there are 1,277 Caymanians in Northside, again per the census. 75%, or 955, were born in the Cayman Islands, and 25% were not born in the Cayman Islands. Looking at the District of East End, Mr. Speaker, there are 1,080 Caymanians, 865 were born in the Cayman Islands, which is 80%, and 215, or 20%, were not born in the Cayman Islands. With the Cayman Brac, Mr. Speaker, there were 1,317 Caymanians, of which 943 were born in Cayman Brac, which represented 72%, and 72%, and 374, or 28%, were not born in the Cayman Islands. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, and this one is a bit of a surprise to me, Little Cayman, there had 48 Caymanians in Little Cayman, of which only 16 were born in the Cayman Islands, and the other 67%, or the other 32, was actually born outside the Cayman Islands. When you look at the census and you go through the census, Mr. Speaker, you see the diversity, you see the richness, you see what it is that makes the Cayman Islands unique. And I don't think there's anywhere else in the world you can find 130 different nationalities sharing 102 square miles anywhere out of a major North American or European city. A small island, and I dread to say that nowhere else in the Caribbean you're going to find over 130 different nationalities sharing over 100 square miles. Mr. Speaker, I've had the pleasure and the privilege of having jobs that allowed me to travel. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, without any fear of contradiction or anything, despite our struggles, despite our challenges, and despite all the issues we have going on in Cayman, this is still one of the best places to live and work on this planet. Do not kid yourself. We can still leave our doors unlocked despite, we have some issues with crime. It is still generally a safe place to live. It's still a good place to raise our families. And a lot of people around the world who come from countries where there are a lot of strife and a lot of different challenges know why, when they come to the Cayman Islands, why they don't want to leave. And to some extent, I think the only people who probably don't appreciate what we have here is our own people. I mean, people save up for years just to come to our beaches, and we drive past it every day like it's nothing. But yet, throughout COVID, when we went through the lockdown, everyone started to appreciate the little things that we took for granted. Even, I didn't know how much people wanted to go walking, how many people wanted to go to the beach, because all of a sudden when it wasn't available to them is when they wanted it. So, Mr. Speaker, I say this to say, and I look at other Caribbean islands that are struggling with the issue of immigration, and immigration is a very emotive issue We have seen it in North America, we have seen it in Europe, we have seen it everywhere, where immigration has become a dominant issue. And for us, it's very easy to go out and play on people's fears. To say, well, you know, your life is miserable and you got foreigners to blame, because people always need somebody to blame. And one of the things that I've always boggled my mind, Mr. Speaker, is how rich people can convince poor people that the reason that you're poor is because other poor people come and do the jobs that you didn't want to do in the first place. That in itself is a gift. You know, when they actually make off like bandits, and bit by bit, I mean, and we have it here in Cayman, we have recognized that, you know, we speak about the merchant class, but now there's a new class that's actually emerging, the oligarchs, as much as we don't want to look at it. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, it takes a lot of audacity and temerity that you can work for an organization for the longest while, make a ton load of money until, quote unquote, the wheels fall off. And then, after you've made all your millions, you're bored, you have nothing else to do. Let me go and go run a country. Let me go find a bunch of other people who have never been elected, never been anything, and say, come follow me. I got $50,000 for you if you come run with me. Bear in mind, Mr. Speaker, the election law is a limit of 40,000. So when you start making promises of 50,000 off the bat to come run with me, you're already in breach of the law. You know, and you know, this has always been the issue with incumbents, where we, as elected MPs, are subject to the standards in public life and everything else. We have certain restrictions of things we can't do. But for other people out there who, until they formally make that, they can go out there and spend money left, right, and center, and you know, I mean, you name it. And until we sit down, Mr. Speaker, and start having even a serious conversation about finances and politics and everything else, we're going to have a lot of challenges in this country. You know, I'm not going to get too much into that because it's not the nature of this motion. But the point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, is that you can't be going around in corporate boardroom raising a ton load of money from new Caymanians, PR holders, and non-Caymanians, and then run into indigenous Caymanians and say, boy, you know, we need to find a way to run this country now because it's being overrun by foreigners. But then you go to the other rooms with the new Caymanians and say, boy, you know, we need to find a way to make sure that you find your place in society. Then you go to the people at PR and say, well, we need to make sure we find a way to fast track you so people like you can become Caymanian. It's just this double speak. And all the time, Mr. Speaker, going around creating division in this country. Let me tell you something. Anybody ever take a look at Bermuda? I see this Bermuda video floating around where the Bermudans, and let me tell you something, Bermuda got serious racial issue in Bermuda, you know, between black and white. But I am also sympathetic to the people from Bermuda because you know what? There were in Bermuda cases where you had the white onlys. There were places in Bermuda where black people couldn't go. There were places in Bermuda where if you had land in several different districts, you could have voted multiple times because if you didn't own land, you couldn't vote. So I do understand the Bermudan struggle. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I will say this much. When I first went to school in New York, I used to get into a lot of arguments with black Americans. And part of it is that we in the Caribbean were never seen as embracing their civil rights struggles too much. Because in the Caribbean, we were fighting colonialism. We were fighting imperialism. They were fighting, so when you look at fighting colonialism in the Caribbean, at some point, many of the Caribbean islands were able to say to their colonial masters, leave. In the United States, the black Americans, those other Americans wasn't going anywhere. They had to find a way to coexist. And many of us were able to go to the United States, benefit from the civil rights movement, but not really understand or appreciate the civil rights struggle. Because we had a different struggle that we were looking at. But I say all of that to say, Mr. Speaker, you know, I went to a Jewish university, and I can tell you some of the best, kindest people to me were my Jewish professors. My interest in political science actually came from my Jewish professors. where they would sit down. I know yesterday when I spoke about being elected student government president in a Jewish university, it was because I had Jewish professors. We had 2 days of voting at Pace. I had Jewish professors stop in their class to say, guys, did you all go and vote for Chris as yet? Go and vote for Chris. That's what Jewish professors were doing. And all the while because the administration didn't like me. That's the first time I found out about a tripartite system in the university between the students, the faculty, and the administrators. And we all met in the Senate. And for the longest while, the administration controlled 2/3 of the Senate because they controlled the student government vote. And all of a sudden, the administration didn't like me, no surprises there. I decided to run against them, and all the professors decided, you know what? We're going to support Chris because the administration don't like him. And it was the first time we were actually able in the Pace Senate to take the gavel out of the hand of the administrators and put it in the hand of a professor, because then the momentum shift. But that was my first foray into politics at that level, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, I know today is your birthday and you just seem to be finding your stride now, but I'm getting complaints about the need for people to fortify themselves. It is now 15 minutes after 1. Unless you are going to wind up in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll take the luncheon suspension now.
Oh no, Mr. Speaker, I'm not winding up anytime soon.
All right, we'll suspend until 2 o'clock.